Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. So I have something a little bit different for everybody today. So I decided to try my hand at the whole Hazbin Hotel redesign thing, but I didn't just want to do a redesign because I've seen that done so many times already before, and honestly, there were so many exceptional designs and I wasn't really sure how I could improve upon it. So instead, I decided I wanted to do a little bit of a steampunk AU. The first design that came to my head was Alastor. I had a very distinct image in my head for his silhouette, which is an odd thing to start out with, but it was so vivid that I had to put it to paper. And once I had his blotched out sketch done, the rest of the characters just kind of fell right into place, and it was all downhill from there. So today, we are going to start with the one who spearheaded this entire series, which is Alastor himself. I decided to model these illustrations after tarot cards, which is by no means a new concept amongst the community, but I had the strongest urge to just put as much gold and filigree on these illustrations as I could, and so you know what? I just wanted to follow my instincts here. Instead of just doing redesigns by themselves, I wanted to add some background lore with them and do a little bit of world building. At first I had a hard time writing personalities and backgrounds for the characters that were different enough from the original but also captured the same energy. I enjoy the characters in the originals and what they stand for quite a lot, so trying to change them so that they were distinct was a struggle. So I decided to do tarot readings for them to help me out. And you know what? I thought it was pretty fitting since I wanted the illustrations to kind of look like a tarot card deck to begin with. So I'm gonna do that for each character. I decided to draw 4 cards, one representing each aspect of the character, and use those readings to expand upon certain characteristics that are going to be unique to this AU. At first, Alastor's reading really didn't help me because, to be honest, I did an accurate reading of the character, which, I don't know what that says about me or what, but, you know, I'm just gonna roll with it. In the first half of this video, I want to go over some of my design choices and which ones were specifically made to differ from the original designs, and then which ones were more specific to this AU. And some of these changes were, let's be honest, completely self-indulgent. In the second half of this video, I'd like to do an atmospheric storytelling. Go over Alastor's tarot reading and get into the nitty-gritty of his backstory and dip our toes into the actual world building of this steampunk universe. So let's get into the thick of it, shall we? So for Alastor's design, I knew immediately that I wanted the big overcoat. And not just an overcoat, but one that he specifically hangs on his shoulders. Like, he doesn't want to wear it. And I think that it would be just a highly specific choice on his end. People would come by and ask him how he has his coat attached to his shoulders, and he'd probably look at them and just say, "It's funny that you ask," and then just never answer. The coat itself has design elements that are reminiscent of the 1920s, the Roaring Twenties, and the 1930s, mixed with some steampunk flair. Creative, I know, but I just threw a bunch of gears all over him. I think that maybe the gear situation was very prominent in my mind when I was making his design. His overall look is a lot more steampunk in comparison to Charlie and Lucifer, which are the only 2 that I have finished besides this one so far. But that's fine with me. I just wanted it to be steampunk, but also cater to that Victorian style. So I took a few references from movies like Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes series, which I really enjoy the vibes in those films. I also just looked up some general steampunk fashion and Victorian fashion on Pinterest to get some inspiration. I also tried out Milanote for the first time to put together a mood board for all the characters, and no, that's not sponsored, geez, I wish. I picked out a massive cravat for him, which besides the coat was the other element of his design that I really needed to have, with the button-down shirt. And of course, you know, his shirt goes all the way up to under his chin, and his gloves are black and his nails are red. All of the characters that I've done so far actually have red nails, and I'm starting to think that I should make it sort of a theme. It's just a hell thing. His staff was something I did on accident, actually. I turned on the symmetry filter and just went in with a gold brush and hoped for the best. In my head, I was seeing a deer made out of gears, and I wasn't really sure how to put it on paper, but I liked what came out, and it ended up really nice in the final product. I'm really happy with it. Aside from the coat and the staff, I wanted to keep the rest of his design fairly simple. I feel like he's trying to attract attention to himself not through his fashion sense, but more so his showmanship. And of course, we'll get more into that side of him in the tarot reading section. Also, don't ask me where the golden spikes on tips of his boots came from. I really liked the look. It registered as very Alastor coded to me. I saw it in a video of some sort. I cannot remember, but it stuck so vividly in my mind that I had to add it. I gave him some long hair. I really enjoyed the idea that, along with his coat, it gives him a really big silhouette that casts long shadows when he's in his demon form. I was trying to capture the duality between his small, spindly frame and what he could be when he's on the attack. I wanted his eye to stand out, so I went ahead and gave him that popping green that comes from his magic, kind of how Lucifer and Charlie's eyes glow in the dark. And I mean, most of the characters in both Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss seem to have eyes that glow in the dark, but Alastor's eyes always seemed a little bit one note to me, especially in his default form, which is probably on purpose, but in this universe, I really wanted his eye to stand out since he always has a shadow over his face, since I wanted to keep his little bangs. I gave him a mechanical monocle that covers his left eye, and nobody knows if he has an eye under there or if it's just a fashion statement, and he has no intention of enlightening anybody to the reality, so that is that. And this is completely self-indulgent, but I really wanted his antlers to be bigger. I read somewhere that it was canon that Alastor went into a corner at night and considered that sleeping, and I have no idea if that's true, but I think that solves all of his potential sleeping problems when it comes to having antlers sticking out the side of your head. I'm just gonna stick with that theory for the AU. I think it's hilarious. As for the rest of his design, I wanted to incorporate some of his Haitian magic. In the background, I added a Veve symbol. The symbol that I ended up going with was the Ogo, or Ogu. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I've seen a few different iterations of it, so I apologize if I mispronounce it. It's a powerful warrior spirit. He's really stubborn and never quite giving in to his hopelessness. So I feel like a symbol like this backing him is probably the most accurate. Also, this footage shows my initial design for the frame. I ended up going back and touching it up a little bit after I did Charlie and Lucifer because Alastor's ended up looking a bit scratchy compared to the others once I got the hang of it, so the final version will look a bit different. Also, I hand-did his title card, his name and tarot title, but I went back with an official font later and made them a bit more uniform. Okay, so now that I've talked about the design pretty extensively, let's get into the deep, dark story, shall we? Card 1. Relationship with the Deal. The Maschereri, the Master of Faces. Alastor uses his inherent power in hell to fool all who know him into believing that he is, and always will be, in complete control. Amongst our cast, he draws a new mask with every interaction. Around Charlie, he's a showman and a mentor. Around Lucifer, he's subtly demeaning, but cautious. Around Husk, he's deceptively charming and always asserting authority. Around Vaggie and Angel, who annoy him greatly, he's harsh, blunt, and sarcastic. Around Nifty, he's exceedingly doting. In reality, he's confused. Sometimes he can't grasp which version of himself is the real one. He doesn't know if she took it from him in exchange for the eldritch magic he woke up in hell with 100 years ago. Card 2. Relationship with life. The Walker. Bound to an eternity of journeying. Alastor is, and always was, searching. Running from something unseen, from something he doesn't remember, or something he doesn't want to. Alastor spends his life hunting his birth father, the murderer of his mother. The masks he now flaunts were once nothing but a survival mechanism, forged in the fires of a society built to hold him below the surface. He's never comfortable staying in one place, drifting from bar to bar, playing music to make ends meet. When the radio becomes a mainstay in society, he wastes no time in smooth talking his way into launching a show of his own. He wants to move on, hungers for a future with paths untrodden, but he cannot let go of those who did him wrong. So, while hunting for his father, He uses his radio show to amass a hit list of sorts, picking out the rapists, abusers, and everything in between. On the night he is killed, it is no accident. The identity of his victim was irrelevant. All Alastor cared about was the woman that man had broken. Disposing the body into the dingy waters of the bayou should have been easy, in fact. But he'd made a lapse in judgment, executing his victim on impulse the night of Mardi Gras, while many a passerby lurked in the shadows. As he disposed of the body, the weight of their family heirloom weighed heavy in his coat pocket, passed on to him from his mother. A piece of 8, intricately carved and worn at the edges, reading a language lost to time. Its planes rubbed comfortably between his thumb and forefinger, an action that was rote, habitual as he pondered. Only today, his victim had put up a fight, and blood from his own wrist streaked down his palm and over the crevices upon the coin. Unbeknownst to him, his silhouette had begun to undulate and shift, turning into something inhuman, something unwelcome in the realm of man. Had an armed civilian shot him? Law enforcement, perhaps. It didn't matter, and frankly, he didn't care. All he knew was that in one instant, he was watching the remains of his victim sink below the murky waters as his piece of 8 burned between his fingers, and the next, he was waking up under godforsaken crimson skies with a gilded chain around his neck. In hell, he wants to break free of the life he led, well, save for his habits. Punishing the scum of hell is a thrill to him, tearing apart each and every soul he sent to the afterlife to prove that they'll never escape him, even in death. Card 3. Habits and internal strife. The musician, patience, reflection, and an appreciation for the calm after the storm. After every kill, Alastor spends the next hours of his life playing the piano. He replays each and every moment of the slaughter in his head and considers which aspect of that particular soul was the most vile. It's a therapy of sorts. By doing this, he validates his actions and tries to prove to himself that a punisher is all he'll ever be. Power is the only thing keeping him from becoming a meal for all of Pride's souls, after all. Playing keeps Alastor from remembering just how hopeless his situation really is. The deal he unknowingly made with the embodiment of all evil is stifling, dragging him further and further from who he once was with every tick of heaven's clock tower. Though loath to admit it, the only good thing that came from her deal is that through her, he came to be involved with Hazbin Hotel by some odd, cruel twist of fate. The members of his new cohort are both his first genuine family and the most important names on his hit list. Card 4. Relationship with Lucifer. The orator, perfect while performing no matter the internal strife, but when the script melts away, they become tongue-tied, lost. It could be time for him to be honest. If he chose his words wisely, the horrid truth might not hurt as much. With Lucifer, Alastor is always on his toes, making clever quips and trying to get the last word. He won't hold back on his jabs, gleefully aiming right at the core of the devil's turmoil. Problem with Lucifer is he knows how to play the game and leaves Alastor tripping over himself more often than not. He has a way of breaking down Alastor's carefully crafted facade, leaving him scrambling to maintain the performance. His heavy reliance on the craft of masking always hinders him when Lucifer is involved. There's always this sense of knowing coming from the King of Hell. Alastor can only hope that it isn't due to the devil being capable of reading minds. Lucifer is the first one that Alastor finds himself wanting to admit the truth to, but is bound not only by the chain on his soul, but the fear within him as well. So, I used the last card to describe his relationship with Lucifer in particular, because I found something interesting while looking up classifications of demons for a separate project. In Colin de Plancy's hierarchy of demons, Lucifer was listed as the Chief of Justice, and Alastor was the executor of his sentences. I had no idea that Alastor was a reference to an actual demon in demonology, so This was an exciting find for me. It makes sense because in different iterations, from demonology to Greek mythology, Alastor is described as anything from simply an avenger to an avenger of evil deeds, especially those of familial bloodshed. Which, you know, maybe I'm just a little late to the game here, but that lines up so perfectly with so many theories about Alastor's story that I find that absolutely amazing. Anyway, I thought that he would eventually be Lucifer's confidant in this universe. I want to place this AU in the year 2030. Technology slowed to a halt after the radio was invented. Even 100 years after Alastor's death, the only television on Earth is the first iterations. Paper news became the ultimate medium of spreading information to the people, and instead of switching to the screen, humanity simply mastered the newspaper industry. Steam and solar power are the main sources of energy, and the world is one of machinations and clockwork. Hell works much the same as Earth, only instead of steam, their power comes from fires that burn evermore, seemingly without a fuel source. Rumor has it that they remain alight by the power of the Lord of Wrath, but no one really knows. The only thing that has continued to function for the last 10,000 years, however, is Heaven's Clock Tower in Pentagram City's square. It runs on no power, it has never broken and never missed a chime. It has certainly never missed a single second. It's unknown if it's charmed by heaven, or if it's even a true clock tower by definition, considering it existed long before mortals even invented a sundial. All the inhabitants of Hell know is that all who have tried to enter the clock tower have vanished. They cross the threshold and simply cease to be. No theatrics or fanfare, just gone. It is forbidden territory, and yet Alastor has always been aware of an odd tug at his soul since the start of his afterlife. A tug that starts at the chain around his neck and leads him inexplicably towards the inner workings of that tower. He'd never given in to the impulse, knowing what awaited him, but the question remained why her grip on his soul continued to tempt the idea, urging him towards what he knew to be certain doom. Even more confounding was why that subtle urge had turned into a vicious tug-of-war between his own will and hers ever since Lucifer moved into the hotel. And so, good audience, I hope you enjoyed this little passion project of mine. I have plans to do the other members of the main cast in separate videos and would like to have a cohesive collection of Hazbin steampunk lore by the end of it. Let me know if you liked this format for the video. I enjoy writing, but I've never read my stuff out loud and recorded it. I realize that my voice makes some of Alastor's story feel extra edgy, and I could have re-recorded those parts, but I made the executive decision to accept it as part of the charm. I'll come back to this someday and just go, "Aw, would you look at that?" Anyways, Lucifer is up next, so keep a lookout for that. Leave a like and comment your speculations down below if you're up for it. It really helps out the video. If you're here after watching my Archangel theory, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me. I really appreciate it. Now, without further ado, let's check out the finished card. Alastor, the host. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!